Hello everyone, my name is Chin Valdez and today we are going to be talking about our Royal Guard grinding build. So sometimes it can be quite difficult to use support or utility classes to do your regular or daily PvE grinds. But for the Royal Guard, it's actually pretty easy. So we're just using Shield Boomerang. So right now we're taking two camps. We're taking an alligator camp, which gives us the majority of the EXP. And we also have an extra camp of groves, which gives less EXP than alligators, but still extra EXP regardless. So we clear one camp of alligators here with the Shield Boomerang, and another camp of groves over there with another Shield Boomerang. So you can pretty much do this in many camps, depending on what particular mob you've been farming. But right now, from what I've heard, alligators are the most efficient in terms of EXP. But you could also use this for when you're grinding Monster Annihilation for when you're farming cards. So earlier, we were actually using an elemental converter to be able to one-shot the alligators without any problems. But now we're targeting alarms. So alarms are actually neutral element. So we're not able to use elements to increase our damage against the alarms. So how do we increase our damage against neutral targets where we can't use elemental converters? So let's check out our build. So as usual, let's start things off with our stats. But to better understand where we're supposed to be allocating our stats, let's take a look at how Shield Boomerang works first. So basically, Shield Boomerang is when you throw your shield towards a single target, dealing 500% neutral physical damage. So it requires a shield to be equipped. Damage scales off with the shield weight, shield refine level, and also your vitality. While it doesn't really give us the complete formula for damage computation, we do know that vitality heavily increases Shield Boomerang damage. So we would want to be stacking as much vitality as we can. So going back to our stats, of course, we're going to be pumping everything into vitality. And we also try to pump more vitality from other sources like Enchants and our feathers. Now, where else can we get vitality? We can also get these from our cards. So actually right now, we're stacking vitality on our equipment cards. So on our armor, we're using Super Picky. So we get vitality here. On our cloak, we're using 2 pieces of Eclipse cards. Both gives us vitality. On our accessories, we're using 2 Muka cards each. Both also gives us vitality. On our headwear, we're using Lab All My cards. They also give us vitality. So these cards are actually very easy to get. They're actually unlimited supply right now in our store. So they're extremely easy to obtain and also very cheap. And for the rest of the equipment, of course, we'd be using the appropriate size or race cards. For the alarms, I'm using 2 Peko Peko egg cards because I don't have a Scale Worker card. And there is no damage modifier for neutral elements. So I'm using 2 race cards instead. For the shield, cards don't really matter. There are no cards that will help you increase your damage. For my shoes, I just went for Sohi cards to help me with my SP regeneration because we are using Master of Magic set to further increase our skill damage. Of course, the appropriate size cards for our face wear. You can go for any mouthwear cards, they don't really matter. Deviling Puppet cards on our backwear. So looking at our equipment sets, regardless of your stats, by far Master of Magic is the one that gives us the most damage for our Shield Boomerang. So I personally do not stack SP on my builds. But regardless, this is still the best source of damage for our Shield Boomerang build right now. Now you might think you could probably go for Tears Bless, but apparently Strength, Attack has less influence on Shield Boomerang damage compared to something like Vitality. So I have tried this out and I still really deal more damage with Master of Magic. Now it could be different for you guys. You could test it out yourself. But for my build personally, I do more damage with Master of Magic than Pierce Bless. So for the weapon, this is actually something that not a lot of people know about. But this has been around ever since the world began. No, ever since Ragnarok Origin started. We've been using this since we were swordsmen. We were using this when we were Lord Knights. But the Fire Blend is actually a pretty effective weapon for dealing damage against neutral targets, not just earth targets. So what happens is, your Shield Boomerang actually inherits the element that your weapon uses. So Shield Boomerang damage is based off of your shield weight and your shield refine level and your vitality, but it inherits your weapon element and your weapon cards. So with Fire Blend, it actually converts our Shield Boomerang to fire, but at the same time, we get fire skill damage plus 18%. You could actually test this out with other weapons. You could probably try something that gives you more attack or more damage or whatever, but you would find that you would actually be getting the most damage from Fire Blend if you were targeting neutral targets. But otherwise, you'd be going for Excalibur only because it gives you 14 vitality. So for enemies that you could use elemental converters on, you'd be going for Excalibur. For enemies that you can't, you'd be using Fire Blend. But wait, actually the weapon you use is very situational. Because as you can see here, we're actually using a Refine Zero one-hand sword. So the weapon actually has no refines. Now you would be increasing damage by adding refine levels. As a Royal Guard, my main weapon is my spear. So I have a plus 16 spear here right now. But I get more damage by using my one-hand sword. Now why is that? It's because my target right now is an alarm. So the alarm is formless, neutral, and medium. So we have to take advantage of the weapon penalties that we have against sizes of monsters. So as we can see here, if we were to go with our one-handed spear that's plus 16, we'd only be doing 75% damage to medium. Compared to if we were using a one-handed sword, we deal 100% damage to medium. Which means if you were to be grinding large monsters, you'd want to use your one-handed spear so you can deal 100% damage to large. But most of the monsters that we are grinding right now for both combat time and monster annihilation, I'd say maybe like 90% of them are medium. So we're using a one-hand sword right now, even if it's plus 0. So this is our plus 0 Fire Blend sword right now against alarms. For shield, of course, it's the cross shield. So the cross shield increases your shield boomerang damage by quite a lot and further increases your shield boomerang damage as you give it more refines. This particular shield is primarily focused on increasing your shield skills damage. So with that out of the way, for equipment, I wouldn't really be stressing about it too much. You know, this is just combat time grinding or monster annihilation grinding. So I wouldn't really recommend that you have your equipment focused towards grinding. Of course, we still focus towards PvP or MVPs, depending on what kind of player you are, whether you're PvE or PvP oriented player. So don't stress about it too much. It doesn't really matter too much either. For enchants, it's the usual. Of course, you go for PvE technique wherever it's available. And then you try to go for vitality stats. Alright, so vitality is what increases your shield boomerang damage. And for your weapon and your accessories, you go for ranged boon. For cogwheels, one of the most important cogwheel skills that you would want is Bouncing Booster Device. So Bouncing Booster Device allows your shield boomerang to bounce between multiple enemies. That's mostly the most important skill that you would want from your cogwheels when you're grinding, especially with multiple mobs like our alligators earlier. But otherwise, you would just go for your usual damage increasing skills. So the best ones you would probably want are Bloodthirst, Mana Length Boost, Mana Length Reversal depending on the position of the enemies. Holy Light Shield also increases your damage by a bit. And from your expert effects is Big Bully. Now for skills, you don't have to stress about skills too much. But the main ones that you would want are max level shield boomerang, of course, max level heavy shield training. I have a feeling this has been fixed already. So for the longest time, this was bugged. It did not work. Now I'm too lazy to test if it works now, but I have a feeling it already works. Maybe, probably. So get max level heavy shield training, max level spear mastery for times when you'd be using spears, max level sword mastery for times where you'd be using swords, as we are right now, and max level fortitude, which gives you 20% ignore physical defense. For feathers, this is the usual and standard DPS feather setup that you normally go for. I can't really afford to invest in too many feathers. I have to focus on my 4 gold, 1 purple feather setup. So I can't afford to go for 3 gold and 2 purple and 4 gold, 1 purple. It's gonna cost too many resources. And since this is just grinding combat time and monster annihilation, I'm not really gonna be investing too many resources in this kind of build, right? So we're going for time, space, sky, day, and valor for our attack feathers. So this gives us the most ignore physical defense, as well as strength and attack, which still helps our shield boomerang by a little bit. But for our defense feathers, it actually doesn't matter too much since we should be focusing on damage. But it's imperative that you do have a virtue feather here. So the virtue feather gives you vitality. So again, I can't emphasize this enough. Vitality increases your shield boomerang damage. So be sure to have virtue feathers all around. For sigils, these are probably gonna be the best or the main sigils that you would be wanting for your shield boomerang grinding. So it's gonna be Meteor and Starfall, Megaton Bash, and Overpower. So Meteor increases your damage against enemies with higher HP than you, which is pretty much every monster that you're grinding right now. Same goes for Starfall, it's just the higher tier version. And Megaton Bash increases your attack damage when your damage exceeds 70% of the target's max HP. So Megaton Bash and Overpower, which is the lower tier version, are there to help you get that extra bit of damage when you're lacking just a little bit to be able to one-shot these mobs. So I think these are the best or the most optimal sigils right now for your shield boomerang grinding. So there aren't actually any Nexus engine talents that can help your shield boomerang increase its damage, but the Ferocious Warrior Emir's tier can actually help you by a little bit. So with the tier 2 Ferocious Warrior Emir's tier, you get additional 20% physical attack bonus when your battle rage points reach 50 or more. And in this case, since we're not gonna be using our ult, our battle rage points are gonna be sitting at 100 the entire time. So we always have full or 100 battle rage points. For pets, of course, I think the best ones to use are Genesis or Earthlord, depending on the situation and depending on your camps. For multiple camps, you'd want to use Earthlord, of course, and for higher HP mobs, you'd want to go for Genesis to improve your damage. If this guide has helped you in any way, shape, or form, please do let me know in the comment section down below. Nothing warms my heart more than knowing that we've helped out a few viewers out there with their journey here in Ragnarok Origin. Now, if you want to learn more about our Royal Guard, I've actually created a guide for both PvE and PvP Royal Guards. So do check out our Royal Guard guides here on our channel, Chin Valdez TV. Hope to see you all on the next one. Be sure to like and subscribe.